standards. Where there may be instances where there may be differences in between those two standards, the higher standard will prevail. Next slide, please. So looking at the port of entry in Canada, it is very large. It's about 130 acres in site, and once constructed, it will be the largest along the Canada-US border. It includes the types of things that you would expect to see at any land border crossing. So there are outbound inspection facilities as well as 24 primary inspection booths. And those booths are split between commercial traffic, which is predominantly trucks, as well as passenger, which would be the types of vehicles that you and I would be riding in. As well, all of the toll collection facilities are located in Canada. So there are 16 toll collection lanes, 8 in each direction. And you will pay your toll, excuse me, as you leave Canada to go to the US, or as you're coming back into Canada, you would go through customs and then pay your toll as you leave the port of entry. Next slide, please. Looking at the US port of entry, it is a little bigger. It's 167 acres, and it includes 36 primary inspection booths. We're often asked why there may be a difference in size between the two, and I will note that both of the ports of entry were really constructed to both border agency specifications. So working with Canada Border Services Agency in Canada, and then US Customs and Border Protection in the US. And despite having very similar objectives, they both do use completely different methodology in terms of what they use to identify the needs for ports. So CBP's algorithm is a little different, which resulted in a larger footprint. Next slide, please. So I mentioned that Michigan interchange, the I-75 work that is also required, and that's roughly 3 kilometers of I-75 that requires some remediation to accommodate those long road ramp bridges that you can see in this image. To accommodate those, there were actually 6 road bridges crossing I-75 that required demolition, and 4 were reconstructed. And as well, there were 5 pedestrian bridges that required demolition and reconstruction to accommodate those ramps. As well, there's a number of local road improvements on some of the local roads adjacent to the port of entry to allow for better traffic flow and commercial truck turns through improved intersection turning radii. Next slide, please. One of the things that we're very proud of is the entire project really took an environmental and sustainability approach through both the design and the construction and the operations phases of the project. The bridge itself was recently awarded, or sorry, about 2 years ago, I guess it's not that recent anymore. The bridge was awarded an Envision Platinum Award, which is similar to the LEED system that some of you may be familiar with. LEED covers off buildings and Envision covers off roads and bridges. So the bridge itself is at a platinum level. The 2 ports of entry have been designed to meet LEED Silver standards. And there's a number of sustainable design integrations throughout both. You can see some of those on this slide. There's LED lighting being used for exterior lighting and also inside buildings. The facilities have also been designed to take advantage of natural light to reduce the need for lighting. There are extensive stormwater management plans and systems in place for both ports of entry as well as the bridge. There's a green roof incorporated into the Canadian port of entry. And also drought-tolerant plants are being used, and as well, a peregrine falcon box is being installed on the Canadian side of the bridge. Some of you may be familiar with peregrine falcons. They have been a species at risk for several years, and there's several mating pairs that are known in the Windsor-Detroit area who currently live in some of the high-rise buildings in downtown Windsor, as well as the other bridge. And we're hoping that we can entice a couple to move on downriver and join us on our bridge. Next slide, please. So I did mention that multi-use path, and I will note this wasn't part of the original design for the bridge. In 2015, when we started doing some community consultation on a number of different elements within the bridge, we heard a lot from the communities who remembered fondly walking over the existing bridge between Windsor and Detroit. The ability to walk across that bridge was removed in the 80s, but people did have a lot of memories of that. And given that the bridge is being built for a 125-year lifespan and active transportation is becoming more common in both countries, it was important that this be integrated. So we did reopen the design package and made this a requirement. The path itself has a number of safety amenities. You can see in the image that you are separated from traffic by both a shoulder as well as a concrete barrier. And on the water's side, there is means restriction fencing to prevent anything from being thrown over. I'll also note that last year we were very excited to become the first international crossing that's part of the Trans-Canada Trail, which is a 28,000-kilometer trail that really runs coast to coast in Canada, and we are their first international crossing, which is very cool. Next slide, please.
Sorry, it won't switch for me yet.
So looking at bridge construction, the bridge itself as a cable stay bridge, Bridging North America took what's called an unbalanced cantilever approach to building the bridge. And you can see on this slide, the diagram. Really what that means is they started from the land. Well, they started with the towers, actually. And then from the towers, they went from side to side. So they built the approach bridges that were on the land and then slowly began adding bridge segments to that main span until they met in the middle. And that happened in June of 2024. So that was a very exciting time for us last summer. Next slide, please. Looking at the some of the construction milestones, the bridge is, if you look at it, it looks very complete. Those towers are at their full height of 720 feet. As I mentioned, the decks did connect over the river last summer, and all 216 of the stay cables have been installed, and they have been tensioned appropriately. So they are doing their job of holding up the bridge and all of the construction equipment and people that are currently on it. What will be happening over the next several months as we prepare for an opening later this fall is the installation of a lot of the supplementary systems, such as fire suppression, lighting, that means restriction fencing that I mentioned, as well as doing the line painting and sign installation and things like that. Next slide, please. Significant work has happened at the two ports of entry, and if you happen to drive around them now or around the exterior of them, they look how they do in the renderings. So they look like they're ready for business. They're not quite there yet. There's still a lot of work happening on the interiors of the buildings, as well as preparing a lot of the landscaping and final concrete placement for parking lots and things like that. Both agencies will be moving in over the next few months. And at that point in time, they do have roughly a 6-month commissioning period. So they will be working on making sure that all of their equipment is in place. There's appropriate training that has happened for their staff. And we'll also be working quite closely with the first responders on both sides of the border to make sure that they have opportunities to come in and do some training exercises so that if there's an issue or an incident that they need to respond to, they already know where they're going and they have the lay of the land. In terms of the Michigan interchange, a lot of that work it's probably the most visible if you are in Detroit. For some of you who may have traveled down south this winter, if you went through this corridor, you probably did drive through some of the construction as 3 kilometers is pretty well under construction at this point in time. Those long connecting ramps are pretty well done and are now undergoing some of those supplementary system installations that similar to the main span, such as lighting, line painting, and things like that. And as well, work continues on those pedestrian bridges that I also mentioned. Next slide, please. So one of the benefits of the Windsor-Detroit Gateway is really the location. And when you look at this map, it really draws home exactly how much trade can go through this corridor and why it is one of the most uh, important crossings between the two countries. Depending on the year, roughly 25 to 30% of Canada-US trade crosses at Windsor-Detroit. And you can see it's not just coming from the Midwest, but it does draw from the Eastern Seaboard as well, excuse me, coming up from Texas and the Mexico border, as well as the ports in California. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we have been preparing for as construction is in the home stretch is preparing for that opening that I mentioned that will be happening later on this fall. And we've spent a lot of time making sure that this crossing really takes a customer centricity lens. So what that means is that as we were doing the design with Bridging North America, and as we were looking at traffic flow and working with the agencies and also our own internal operations, it was truly trying to make sure that navigating through the two ports of entry and across the bridge regardless of which highway you're coming from or going to, is as easy and as efficient as possible. Next slide, please. Uh, in terms of some of the amenities that exist, I mentioned we will be opening with 6 traffic lanes. We do have flexible signage in place as well. So that means that if it is a very heavy day for traffic in one direction, we can easily accommodate switching lanes. So perhaps we switch from a 3 and 3 configuration to a 2 and 4 configuration, which really makes sure that traffic continues to flow. As well, when you add up the primary inspection lanes, there are 60 in total between the two ports, which is the highest number of primary inspection lanes in any Canada-US land crossing. As well, there have been a number of accommodations that have been made for commercial users, such as having refrigerated storage space, which is very important for agri-food shipping. If they do get pulled into secondary inspection, they are able to put the produce or any perishable items into a refrigerated area, which is obviously very important with just-in-time delivery. You don't want your strawberries sitting on a loading dock for a few hours in the sun in the summer, that's for sure. And again, taking into account reduced environmental impact through some of those sustainability designs. Next slide, please. So one of the other items that flows into the customer centricity and make sure that the port will be operating as smoothly as possible is the incorporation of intelligent transportation systems. And for this project, there's really 3 main components to that. One is traffic management, one is traveler information, and the other is operations and maintenance. And I'll dig into each of these in a minute. Next slide, please. Looking at traffic management, there is an integrated traffic management center located at the Canadian Port of Entry that will be responsible for traffic flow coming off of both highways through both ports of entry and the bridge. There are cameras located everywhere on this project, as well as some other automated sensor systems that will be able to do things like identify any incidents, which will allow for fast response, both from first responders, but also making sure that those lanes are cleared quickly. Those shoulders that I mentioned sound like they aren't a big deal, but they actually are very important. The current crossings at Windsor Detroit do not have shoulders, so if something does happen, you are blocking a lane of traffic until that is cleared, whereas we will be able to safely move people to the side of the road, allowing traffic to continue to flow and to allow a response to whatever that incident is, without dodging through traffic. As well, I mentioned that lane management through the flexible signage and also identifying traffic insights, which will allow us to do some forecasting once we identify what those traffic trends could be, in terms of making sure that we're appropriately using the lanes and also staffing up. Next slide, please. At traveler information, this again feeds into that customer centricity. We are working with both road authorities in Ontario and Michigan to be able to offer border wait times in real time through electronic signage along Highway 401 as well as I-75, and also through some apps. As well, we will have dynamic messaging systems, integrating both into the broader provincial and state systems, as well as internally making sure that people have an understanding of where they need to go. And we will be looking at opportunities for autonomous vehicles and connected vehicle systems as those technologies become more prevalent. Next slide, please. In terms of operation and maintenance, there is a road weather information system specific to the two ports of entry that our ops folks will be able to use to make sure that they're responding to whatever weather may come our way. And as well, there is a bridge monitoring system with a number of sensors that have been integrated into bridge components to help with some of those maintenance and lifespan concerns. And really, at the end of the day, we just want to make sure that this port and the bridge offer as much safety as possible, not just for the customers, but also for the people that we have working there. Next slide, please. So one of the most common questions that we get asked at presentations is how much will the toll be? And I'm sure some of you are wondering that, and I don't have an answer for you. So we are working through the final stages of setting our tolls, and we will be announcing those within a few months. But what I can tell you is in terms of commercial, the rate will be based on the axle of vehicle class. We will be able to accept both Canadian and US currency. As well, when you do reach those toll booths, there will be a combination of options, whether it's using a staffed booth, having an automatic payment, or electronic toll collection. And we will have things like prepaid and postpaid accounts for heavy volume users. And we will also offer a bilingual customer service call center. Next slide, please. I mentioned those prepaid and postpaid accounts. They are actually part of a loyalty program that we will be launching within the next few months. And really the benefit for travelers on this is being able to use those automated transponder lanes. You will be able to drive up and really move through relatively quickly. It's estimated that our tests show that up to 400 vehicles per hour at each traffic lane can be accommodated. So obviously, the more traffic that has those transponders, we can definitely move people through, making sure that it's as quick as possible. And for those who do sign up, you would also be receiving a discounted toll rate. Next slide, please. So I'll touch for a minute on the partnerships and community impact. So obviously building a mega project of this magnitude does affect the communities. And we have worked quite closely with both Windsor and Detroit and the neighborhoods of Sandwich and Windsor and Delray, Southwest Detroit, to really try and mitigate some of those effects of construction and bring in some local enhancements and improvements. So the project does have a community benefits plan that focuses on both workforce development strategy for local folks in Windsor and Detroit, as well as a neighborhood infrastructure strategy, which is a $23 million investment into the two communities split equally, and a lot of those are really focusing on neighborhood betterment. As well, I've been here for roughly 10 years, and community engagement has really been at the cornerstone of a lot of the work that we have done. We have had numerous community meetings, not just about community benefits, but some of the mitigations and also design features that have been incorporated into the two ports of entry. Next slide, please. I'll just touch briefly on the economic impacts. So obviously, we're well into our 6th year of construction. And over those 6 years, we've had more than 14,000 people working on the project in Windsor and Detroit. We're very happy to announce that 42% of that has been local to the city of Detroit or Windsor. And as well, we've had more than 770 apprentices and pre-apprentices. And Bridging North America did a really great job in creating more bite-sized contracts for small to medium-sized enterprises. When you're looking at a $6.4 billion project, some of those contracts are of such a magnitude that you do have to be a fairly large entity to even bid on those. They really took efforts to make some of those contracts much smaller, and we've had nearly 300 local businesses from Windsor, Detroit, who have taken part in that. As well, we did work with Deloitte on an economic impact study, and between 2018 and 2022, which included the height of construction, roughly 1.39 billion was contributed to Ontario's gross domestic product, which is significant and only likely to continue as we move into operations. Next slide, please. I mentioned the community benefits plan and the neighborhood infrastructure strategy. So this is that $23 million fund that I mentioned. And this slide really just focuses on some of the amenities that we've done in both communities. We've planted more than 300 trees between the two cities. We have done park improvements in both Windsor and Detroit, including an observation area at a nearby park in Windsor to provide somewhere safe for people to go and view the construction. People are just fascinated with this from a local perspective, and we wanted to make sure that they did have somewhere safe to go instead of trying to park on the side of some of those roads that are being used by construction equipment. Next slide, please. Another element of the project that is a little unusual is our visual art program. And there are really 4 significant art commissions that have been part of this project. You can see in the top corner, artist Sarah Graham and her work that was installed on the exterior of the maintenance building on the Canadian Port of Entry. As well, in that middle, kind of in the middle, lower, you can see the silver, it's silver birch bark, and that was a 9-foot, 3-meter high sculpture created by Anishinaabe artist Michael Belmore to recognize and celebrate the history and traditions of local Indigenous peoples here in the region. And you can see down in that lower right corner, that is a conceptual image of a monument that will be installed outside the Canadian Port of Entry, recognizing the Windsor-Detroit area's role as a destination on the Underground Railroad. And we're quite proud of that. It's being undertaken by artist Jordan Sook, and it's hard to tell in this image, but it really recognizes the role that churches played as formerly enslaved people left the United States and made their way, often using churches or other faith-based organization facilities to make their way to freedom in Canada. Next slide, please. And we do have a video. I'm not sure how this is going to work. So, Jerry, if you want to try and play it, hopefully you have a Wi-Fi connection.
Yes, I can play it.
And then happy to take questions after that.
You want me to play it now?
Sure. Jerry, I'm not sure if there's any questions. I'm happy to answer some. I think we have a few minutes. Jerry, are there any questions in the room?
Give me just a second here. Okay, so are there any questions? If you'd be kind enough to ask questions, and then I'll repeat them to Stephanie and she can answer.
Gather that there was no U.S. government funding or support for anything, including the U.S. Customs tax.
I gather there was no U.S. funding for the U.S. Custom House or any part. I think the other side was paid by the U.S. No? So we're asking the question, was it all paid for by Canada?
So the 6.4 billion is paid by Canada. So the US federal government has provided some funding specific to CBP staffing on the US, but in terms of those four components that we reviewed, the 6.4 billion is being paid by Canada.
And is there a further agreement on how the tolls come back to Canada after that?
So Canada receives all of the toll revenue.
Okay, other questions? Any other questions?
Did we pay for the connection?
Did we pay for the connections to I-75?
Yes, that's part, the Michigan interchange is one of the four components.
Wow. Wow. Aren't we wealthy?
Are there any, I think it's Maroon family that owns the other bridge, or are there any outstanding legal issues?
Are there any outstanding legal issues with the Maroon family who own the other bridge?
No, all of those cases have been settled or resolved, I should say.
Well done. Sure, that was neat. Are the two bridges competing with each other in the tunnel now?
So going back to that Detroit River International Crossing study, the intention was always to have those all of the crossings operational and offering choices. So you will see a redistribution of the traffic, but the intention was to have all of the crossings operational at the same time. To lose one of those, as you may recall, one of the criteria was looking at redundancy. So to take one of the bridges out really it negates that that need for the bridge. So it is important that all of the bridges are operational.
When the tolls pay for the cost of the bridge, will the tolls then be wiped out?
When we come to the time when all of the tolls have paid for the bridge, the 6.9 billion, will the tolls stop at that time?
That would be a question for the government of Canada.
The answer is that's the question for the government of Canada. Stephanie's not taking on that one right now. Tim?
Will our existing transponders for the 407 be integrated, or will we need a separate transponder to cross the new bridge?
Will our existing transponders for the 407 work, or will we need a new transponder for the bridge?
So they are completely different systems. So you will need the Gordie Howe Bridge transponder.
I'm not sure if you've done this, but how long does it take to walk across the bridge?
That's a good question. In terms of how people are processed, I'm not sure if I mentioned, but there is no intermingling between the users of the multi-use path with vehicular traffic. So you actually go to a separate processing building on both sides. So those are still under construction right now. So no one has actually walked from where you enter to where you leave the port of entry. That will roughly be about a 3-kilometer walk. Anecdotally, some of the construction folks have walked the entire length of the bridge. And depending how fast you're going, it is a 5% grade, 2.5 kilometers, and they're clocking in at about 40 minutes. And that's not dawdling. So you're probably looking at a good 45-minute if you're not walking too slowly. I would probably take closer to an hour.
That question came from a member who's very eager to do that. He's a sports enthusiast, so he's very eager to do it. And will he be charged any tolls when he walks across the bridge?
No, so the use of the multi-use path is toll-free. So it is free for cyclists and pedestrians.
He will be getting in touch with you once he does the walk over there. Here we have somebody who's just going to pass on a couple of comments to you.
Hello, my name is Jim Stebbing. I would like to thank you very much for a very interesting talk, very full of information about an extremely comprehensive talk, I'd say. The thing that strikes me when I look at that bridge named after Gordie Howe is the elbows up. I think the supports look like elbows. Again, thank you very much on behalf of the Provost Club of Oakville.
Thank you, Stephanie, for everything that you do.
Thank you.
What a wonderful professional presentation, and we really appreciate you sharing it. Hello.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good to have you with us. And we look forward to driving over, walking over, and riding our bikes over.
Great. Well, we look forward to having you. Just a few more months.
Thanks so much for what you've done.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Stephanie.
Come on.
Now the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. Jack Rugg, you're always one to do that, right? Okay. Could I have a second, please? All those in favor?
And also for those online, a thanks to Jerry. It was very well organized. It worked well. Thank you.
Thank you, Godfather. You stay well now.
That's it.
Boy, oh boy.